let's talk about practicing scales. Um, okay, so scales are, I guess, to me, they're more or less like the building blocks of music. It's one of those things that you kind of have to do and get underneath your belt. The problem is that there are different ways for you to use scales, and the first thing is that it's a must. I mean, to me, it's an educational tool. All right, so scales enable you to kind of learn all of the notes on your instrument. So I was basically just riffing off of the C major scale. That is a must. That's non-negotiable. You got to know where your notes are on the fretboard, on the guitar, on the fingerboard if you're playing cello or some other instrument. And scales are one of the ways and the building blocks for doing that. So in this case, you got to know where the C is. You got to know where the D is. We got to know where the E, F. You got to know that this is a C. You got to know that this is a C. You got to know that this is a C. And scales enable you to do that in a very methodical manner. So as you learn the different positions, as you learn what I was leveraging at the beginning of riffing around there, three notes per string scale. That's a three-note scale per string. So that's the first thing. So scales let you provide you with the vocabulary and it's a map of where the notes are on the thing. That's the first thing. The second thing is scales enable you to build your dexterity on both your right hand and your left hand. So it's like lifting weights for your guitar playing, your instrument and stuff. So you can practice scales with a metronome very slowly. You can then speed it up. And so it just enables you to get fluidity in both your right and left hand. So that's the first thing. The third one is the one that most people struggle with. And this is one of the things that's critical. So remember what I said. The first is that it's a learning tool. But musicians don't play scales like it's a scale. And that little, improvisation at the beginning, I did a little bit from time to time. So, for example, the C major scale, all right, it goes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's just a way for me to teach somebody or for you to learn it. Very few times you just hear, unless somebody's practicing the scale. That's not the way music is actually written. What happens is that the musical portion of it, which is the third element, is the one that we struggle with. And it's what you've got to be able to pull through, which is snippets. That's all it is. It's building melodies and using the scale to build the melody and then to build up ideas. So at some point, you practice with your metronome and you're doing this. Doing that, you're learning the major scale, the minor scales, you're learning modes, you're learning harmonic minors, you're learning all this stuff, and that's good. What you need to do is start learning melodies, and for me, it's gonna be, I think it's almost impossible to master every scale. You gotta choose your battles, and there are some players, I'm not gonna get involved or go into it, that are more minor players. I mean, I should say that, like somebody like Santana, you hear the way he plays. For me, I'm a major player. When I say that, major scales are the things that I thrive on. And I figured out some easy ways or things that are very intuitive for my playing style that enables me to play it over minor chords. And then when people start talking about sevens and nines and all this stuff and 11s, those are just extensions. Don't let that stuff or bebop scales no, just learn and master definitely your major scale and your minor scale. And then play some stuff over that. And as you're doing that, make it musical. By that I mean do some snippets of it. Don't practice just going from C to C or A to A. After a while, listen to songs and pick out melodies, because there's a lot of songs, especially the nursery rhyme stuff, something like that's just a major scale. Bach too. So that was like The More We Sing Together. Bach was like. So you get the idea. So children's songs, some classical music. It's not everything has to be very, very complex. And what that helps you with which is, again, we're talking about the third element, which is like how to make your scales more musical. or scale practice more musical. Learn some, children's melodies. Learn some simple classical kind of melodies. And I stress this because I think you should try to learn that stuff by ear, at least initially. I read music and I learn to read music, but if you can't pick out a simple melody by ear, you probably have no business playing an instrument, quite frankly. I'm not saying for you to be able to say, hey, this is a minor 7 flat of fifth and you're in the key of, F sharp and all that stuff. I'm not talking about that. But at some point, you got to be able to hear that this is a whole step. You may not call it that, or there's a half step. You don't have to have the vocabulary to articulate it from that. But your ears and your hands have to make a connection and make that leap. And it doesn't have to be, I'm not saying let's go figure out Pat Martino solos or even Wes Montgomery solos, but at some level, you have to be able to use your ears to create melodies. Because if you can't hear the melody, the reason I say that, don't go buy a book and start reading melodies off of it. The reason I say that is because you got to hear the melody in your ear and you got to translate it to your instrument. That's why I say start off with something simple. And you don't have to figure out the whole melody, just snippets of it and stick that in there when you're practicing your scale. So, all right, long-winded message, but practice your scales. Pick a home bass that you're comfortable with, whether it's minor or major. It may be Mixolydian for all I mean. It may be a bebop scale. I don't really care about the name. But pick a scale and familiarize yourself with it and pick out some melodies. One, it's going to help you just in terms of learning the instrument itself. Two, it's going to help you technically. And three, it's going to help you with your improvisation overall, just by you using your ears a little bit better and then having fun with the instrument. All right, then. Thank you for watching, and practice some more.